Microsoft Excel 2003 Charts and Graphs Part 2. In this video, we continue on as we look at the very fabulous feature of Microsoft Excel, and that is the ability to take data and show it in some sort of graph or chart. Now, in this part of the series, we're going to not only show you somehow how to modify things and talk about data, but we're going to introduce you to the happiest chart in Excel. In this video, we continue where we left off in our Charts and Graphs Part 1, so this makes it Part 2. We're going to look at what happens when we modify data. Not only when we change existing data, but maybe when we add more data, and do we include that as part of the chart? Does it go with the chart? How do we, fix that type of thing? We're going to see how we can format the chart to make it look a little nicer. Come on, we can always make charts look a little better than just the dull bar charts. And we got a surprise for you, the all-new chart, something that I think you're going to really enjoy. Now, I'm not going to ruin the surprise and let you know what it is until after I show it to you. I mean, it makes sense, right? When we left off in that last video, we were talking about how to create our charts and our graphs and even modify a little bit of the look and feel to them. Well, we're going to do that even more here in this video, but we also want to show you some of the cool features that these charts have. Like number one, did you know that these charts will adapt to whatever data is in that data table that we placed? You don't believe me? Well, let me show you. For example, when we left off, we were in our basic charting, and I've called this Basic Charting Part 2. Remember, we had week number 4 instrument sales. Here was the data that we wanted to chart. And then once we created the chart, we said we'll make a bar chart. And then we went ahead and put it out here as a separate worksheet so we can print this out and people can go, oh, wow, look at all the sales that Debbie, Christina, Jeremy, James, and Dan had, how many they sold and what days they were on. And so we have that information now in our chart. But let's say that I get a call from my good buddy Jeremy, who, quite frankly, Jeremy, sometimes he just isn't up to speed on things, and he really didn't sell as many as he thought, or he sold more than he thought. He just forgot about it. Well, what happens now when I come over here to week 4 sales data, and I come to my chart here, and I come over to Jeremy, and he says, well, on Wednesday, I didn't sell 532. I actually sold 1,000. So we put in 1,000. And then, I get an email from Christina who says, oh, wait, you know what? It was actually 1,200. And I don't know, maybe they're having a contest or something here. And then Debbie calls up and says, I sold 935. So now I changed the data here on our Wednesday. It's 1,000, 1,200, and 935. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, now that's a bad joke, but look back here on the chart here. What happened when I changed the data here on my Wednesday? Absolutely, it updates. It's adaptive. So the data here for Christina on her Wednesday is now at 1,200. Debbie's is up to 935. And then Jeremy, yep, he forgot. Poor Jeremy. But he's at 1,000 now. So now when I look at the chart, I know that this is now the latest and greatest information. But let's say now that I forgot that I had somebody else. And that person is Bob. Because remember, we had Bob. And so Bob sent me an email, man, Chris, I'm sorry. I forgot to give you those details. So this time, I'm going to add, the 363, and I'm, just coming up with these numbers. And maybe he had 482, and then he had 685, and then he had 42, and then he had 1,000. Okay, so now we've got Bob here. Well, what about Bob? When I click on the week 4 sales chart, there ain't no Bob. Why is that? Well, take a look. I have only had a data range for this chart is right here. It doesn't include Bob. So what am I going to do? I'm going to have to change for my week 4 sales. I'm going to have to change the source data. The way that I do this is by right-clicking and clicking on source data. When I click on this, it says, all right, here is the data range that you're going to choose from, and we can see that we have it here. Well, watch. I can go ahead and click on this and collapse it and say, well, now I want it to be all of this for this source data. So now let's see what happens. Go ahead and bring this down. I click OK, and yep, now Bob's information is now part of my chart here. We can see my salespeople still there, but now there's Bob and Debbie and Christina and Jeremy and James and Dan, and so the information is all set up. Here is the information on how many units sold. It matches. I've changed the source data. The source data is always going to be up here. Now, you're like, well, wait, it's only highlighted. Well, that's because I highlighted that. If I highlight this, this is the data that we are going to use. And again, it's adaptive. When I change things, the chart is going to reflect the changes I make over here on my source table. So we've seen where we can adjust the source data up in here and change what appears on the sales chart. We even saw if we add additional people, if I added another person, maybe Kim, we can then change the amount of data that is being measured. But what about the sales chart itself? What if I don't like the color? I mean, I know it sounds silly, and maybe we're just being a little too posh here, but I don't like the color scheme. Purple, not bad. The red, but the little cream color and the thing that we're doing, the gray background, it doesn't look all that great. And I really want to maybe make this particular chart snap out and grab someone's attention. Well, what can I do? Well, I can adjust and modify the format of the chart. Just like I can modify the format of my cells, my columns, my sheets, and everything, absolutely I can do that here. So the first thing I can do is just pick the area that I want to change. Well, what was the first thing I said? One of the first things I said was the gray area in the plot area. See how if I roll over it, it says this is I'm pointing to the plot area. And if I'm over here, I'm actually in part of the data series. And if I'm over here, I'm actually talking about the category axis title or the text. So anything that I roll over, if I double click, like on the plot, it says, okay, how would you like to format that plot area? Sounds like a good idea. Now the border right now is a gray. Well, you know what? I want it to be black. That makes it sound a lot better. So I'm going to pick here and go, I want it to be nice and black. In fact, I want the border to be nice and thick here, so it'll go around and it'll really make that snap off really good. And I don't really like the gray inside, so I can come over to the area here and I can say, well, let's see, black, and maybe, I like that light blue that's right here. Maybe I'll use this one right here. So I say, I want it this color. So I click OK, and it says, okay, now you have that blue. Now see how that snaps out? I mean, it really grabs. Okay, I'm trying to be maybe too artsy craftsy with you, but you can see how I've adjusted it by simply clicking on the plot area. Hey, do I want to change the colors of the series and the values here? Not a problem. I double click on it and it says, okay, what do you want to do with the data series? Now you can see that right now I have different colors put in, and the one that I chose right now is that cream color. I don't like the cream color. In fact, I want to change it to a yellow. So I click OK, and now it is a yellow. And if I want to change this one, I can double click on that one. And see, I'm doing it on individual types that I'm doing here, and I'll make it more of a salmon color. I think that's salmon. Sounds good. So I click OK. And so now that's a salmon color. And so now if I click off these things, I can see I'm slowly but surely starting to change what I have on here. I can do the same thing also for text, for titles. If I double click on it, it's going to say, well, what's the font that you want to use? In this case, I think I'll use not Arial, but I'll use a nice common one like, let's see, maybe use Georgia. Oop, I missed it right there. Let me scroll up. Don't you hate when those things happen? And by the way, depending on what type of fonts you have installed based on the programs, you might have a whole bunch of different ones. I think Comic Sans is one that a lot of people have. So it's going to look a little bit like that, a little more poofy. Well, maybe that's not professional enough. Well, maybe I'll come back down here to Times New Roman. That looks pretty good. So I'll do Times New Roman. That looks nice and professional. So I'll go ahead and do that. Do I want it bold? Yep. Maybe make it just slightly bigger to 14. So I click OK, and now look at that. It's all set up. Now it's Times New Roman. It really snaps out there. I'm going to use that word a lot during this video. So now we've got this all set up, and we say to ourselves, okay, is there anything else I want to change? If I do, I just double click on it. I can change the order, by the way, of certain things. If I double click on this, and notice where it says series order, right now it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I can move where the Wednesday appears on my chart. So if I move Wednesday up between Monday and Tuesday, it'll do it. Or maybe I want Wednesday at the very top. Okay, Not a problem. It's all set up. And now when I come down here and I scroll all the way down to the bottom, see the very first one, because remember, you start from the bottom and you go up. The very first one I hit is Wednesday. Then it's Monday. Then it's Tuesday. And so if I need to, and look, my legend doesn't change it, and my colors stay the same for the particular data series. All I've done is just changed it a little bit. Modifying the format is simple. It's very simple. You never have to worry about that. You just click on just about any area in here and you're able to do that. If you want to do it, click on the legend and change the legend, you can do that. You can say, hey, where do you want it? Here's the placement that we talked about, the font that's used in it, the patterns that were used. We can even do fill effects if we want to make it shade, from gradients to textures to patterns to even a picture behind the legend. Maybe I want to select a picture from, if we're talking about the selling instruments. I can talk, I really can. I can come up here and select a picture, and I could put a picture of a trumpet on there. So that way people go, oh, that's kind of cool. It kind of matches the instrument sales theme. Excel is not the boring spreadsheet that everyone thinks it is. You can adapt it and modify it and make it look awesome. And that is the bottom line of what we're trying to show you with just this particular area. So now we want to show you one other thing, and that is some of the more advanced charts that are available and how we can manipulate those. And we're going to show you a quick demonstration on that. But the first thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to save this as a different file. File, Save As. So now it's going to be different than my basic charting part 2 in my example files. Instead, now it's going to come in and say basic charting part 3 and save it that way. And then I'm going to give you a surprise. Guess what? Behind the scenes, before I did the basic charting part 2, I went ahead and added on sheet number 2 the week number 5 instrument sales. So now I can come up here and show you a little bit more on charting based on week number 5 sales. So if I'm over here and getting ready to do a chart on here, I can now add charts from week 4 sales data to week 4 sales chart, and now I'm going to do week 5, and then I'm going to add another chart here, a little bit different one than the ones that we've seen. So what I've done here is I've actually hidden some data underneath my week number 5 instrument sales. So let me scroll down here and show you. I've got my Monday sales breakdown, and in fact I placed some of this data into a list. And the reason I did that because I did some sorting and some information here. But regardless, I want to show you that I can do charts based on what is captured in my list just as well as anything that's on my spreadsheet. It's not a problem. In this case, I've got sales, income, and percent of regional sales. Let me go ahead and take this and expand it out so we can kind of see exactly what it is that we're doing here. Okay, so, and you'll have to pardon it up there. I just changed it up there. So we've got the sales, income, and the percent of regional sales, and that's 3 things that I want to compare on the chart. Not just the up and down X and Y axis. Instead, now I've got 3 things. What can I do? Well, I wanted to show you one of the new charts that they have in Excel 2003. And the reason why, it just has such a happy name. It's the bubble chart. Yes, I know. A lot of people say, well, what are you talking about, Chris? Maybe you've been, popping too many bubbles here. But the bubble charts, they're brand new. And what it allows you to do is put an additional data series and represent it by literally a bubble on the chart. Now, I know you think I'm crazy, but I'm going to show this to you. So I'm going to prove that I'm not. I really am not nuts. Okay. So let's go ahead and I'm going to select the data that I want to put into my chart. So I'm going to select this range from sales, income, and percent of regional sales. And this, by the way, is going to be my X, my Y, and then my new data series, or series 1 data, which is going to be used for the bubbles themselves. And I want it to be based on the size of the bubble will be based on the percent of regional sales. Okay? Makes sense. So now I'm going to go up to my chart wizard, open that up, bring it down, and down here I can see my bubble chart, which is really cool. And so I got my bubble chart here, and it says, okay, I can do a 2D or I can do a 3D with a visual effect, which is kind of fun. So if I click on it, you can see, oh, so that's kind of what it's going to look like. So I come in here and I say, all right, time to go in and click next. And it's going to say, all right, well, what do you want to do here? Well, I want to represent it in columns, which means my, the way I set it up for the X and Y, this goes this way and this goes this way. And then I come over here to my series. Now, for the series, the name right now is nothing, so they just calls it Series 1. Well, what do I know that, what is that? That is going to be my regional sales, right? So I can click on this and say I want that to be percent of regional sales. And there it is, percent of regional sales. So I've changed the name, so now you know what that is. And then as I get going, I can change the labels on what these things are on the side. Now, I don't want to change the values here. I just want to actually label what they are. So I click Next, and it says, all right, what do you want for your titles over here? Well, the value for the x-axis is going to be my sales units. Unites. I need to spell. And my value for the y-axis is going to be my income for sales. And it's going to pop in there just a second, say my income for sales is what's going to be up there. And so now I can come in and I can even put my data labels on as well for this. If I wanted to say, well, what's the bubble size represent? And give you the numbers, that's 52%. But these are kind of munched together, so it's probably not a good idea to do that. So I'll take that off. And then I click Next, and what do I want to do? Do I want to put it as a new chart, new sheet like we saw before, or as an object? Let's go ahead and stick with the object and show you how that works. So I click Finish, and voila, here is my object. Now, obviously, it's kind of covering some of the area that I have here. So if I want to, I can click over here in the chart area, move it over maybe to here, so that way it's now right here. I can still see the Monday sales breakdown, and if I want to, scroll up, I can still see my week number 5 instrument sales. So this is a good placement for it. And if I wanted to make it bigger, because someone would say, well, okay, that kind of makes sense. But if I wanted it bigger, again, number one, I could have just made it a whole separate sheet and it would have shown up, it would have looked nice. Or I can just bring it maybe down here and resize it just a little bit more. So I'll bring it down here. And now what I can do, literally make it nice and big so we can see everything. There we go. Percent of regional sales. We got our little bubbles there showing which is the bigger one. So we got 3 sets of data now with this bubble chart. We have our y-axis value of the income for sales, and then our value for x is how many sales units have been sold from 0 all the way up to 1,000. So we have a lot of charts, but I did want to show you this one because, number one, if you are going for that certification exam, perhaps, I bet you they ask you a question about that bubble chart because it's brand new to Excel 2003. I hope you had as much fun as I did on this particular one because it was kind of interesting. First, we took a look at the modifying of the data, and we said, all right, if I change data, as long as it's within that data table, it will automatically update as part of my chart. And if I need to add more data to it, I can go to the source data selection and select a bigger range or more of the data. We saw how we made our charts snap, right? Come out, look alive, change the colors, change the fonts, the formats, all those things that we were just talking about. And we finally took a look at the all new chart. Now say it with me. The bubble chart, because it's such a fun thing to say. Bubble chart is something new. Now don't forget, though, you have other charts like scatter charts, donut charts, radar charts, surface charts. You've got customized charts that they have. So there are a bunch of others, and it's beyond the scope of this particular video series to show you each and every one of them and then maybe demonstrate them for you. But if you do have any questions, don't forget to use that help, and it will let you know exactly what you can use for a particular chart. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.